And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I'm your host, Wes Tankersley. Today, it's just me. We're going to talk a little bit about some stuff, but before we get started, if you want to do me a big favor, please like, share, and review the show. Help us to grow it. We can't reach people if you do not do that. Haven't got a whole lot of reviews lately. Please go ahead and go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you listen, you got to listen to a couple episodes on Spotify to be able to submit a review, but that would be great. If you would like to support the show, if you would like a Move Forward shirt, if you would like any Shaping Success gear, you can head over to westankersley.com and pick that up or DM me, and we'll get you taken care of. The website is up, and we are trying to work through some stuff. It's not completely set up, but there is a nice landing page there. You can find us on the YouTubes, on podcast, anywhere. Go subscribe, like, share, and review, please. We do have a Patreon as well. If you want to go check that out and help support the show for as little as $4 a month, you can help me to upgrade the show. All the money goes to buying merchandise and getting new equipment and things like that to make the show better for you. We currently have one Patreon. Her name is Nikki Pavlovich. Thank you, Nikki. She writes all the show notes for me as well. And she is an awesome, awesome person. So appreciate you. Also, if you would like some Warriors Collection coffee, Brian Sales is a friend of the show, and he has provided us with a special discount code, hashtag SWC. That's hashtag SWC for 15% off your coffee purchases. Drink his coffee every day. I really like it. I wouldn't pay for it if I didn't. So let's talk about some other stuff. Let's get into it. I have been doing a few interviews with some Enlifted coaches, which are awesome. The really cool thing about it is they all specialize in different things. Megan Henry is kind of like athletics. Mark England is actually the head coach, so he teaches all of the words and how words define you, and changing your words will help you to be a little bit better. And it's interesting because as I was thinking about that the other day, I was listening to Adam Carolla, one of my favorite podcasters. I'm actually getting to go see him live at the end of the month. It's coming up, a couple weeks. We're going to go see Adam Carolla live at the Egyptian Theater, which is really cool. But with Adam, the thing is about him is that he was talking about returning to stand-up. And it was like a classic episode. I hadn't heard it before, but it was on Saturday. It was a classic episode, and I was walking down the road and listening to him talk about being able to do things. The podcast. He's a stand-up comedian, his stand-up, those things like that. And so he was talking about how the words got versus get really define the way that you think about things. And you think about this, like I'm going to break it down in simple terms. I did a TikTok about it, about how work is what it is. Like it is right now, currently at my house, it's 6:17 in the morning. I've been up since 4:15, right? And I was thinking about work in that whole situation. It's like, I've got to go to work today. Like I've got to go to work today. And how many of us say that? Like how many of us live for the weekend? How many of us say, oh, it's Friday, finally. And you sit there and you think, I've got to go to work today. Well, if you switch that word got to get, right? I get to go to work today. Think about that. Think about how that just completely changes the whole trajectory of your day. Because you have a job. It provides you with money. It provides you with the material things that you need. It provides you with air conditioning if you need it. It provides you with heat if you need it. It provides you with a vehicle, right? So when you say I've got, you basically are saying it as a negative thing and it's a bad thing. And so I'm all about trying to figure out how to move forward, how to change the trajectory of my day and how I feel about things. And thinking about that, no one wants to go to work, right? I would rather be sitting on my ass at home doing nothing, right? Watching a movie, hanging out with friends. There's all kinds of things that you could do, but without work, you don't get to do that. So you get to go to work today. You get to make your life better. You get to do the things that you do. I'm building a house right now. Without working, without getting to go to work, I wouldn't be able to get that house. So it's all about your priorities and the way that you want to do things. And that to me is like a simple word change. So if you haven't checked out those episodes, I've had I've had 3 Enlifted coaches on, and they're all different subject matters. Like I said, athletics and words in general. And I don't think I mentioned Jerika Maher, but we talked about relationships and how the words you use with your spouse and things like that or significant other can change the way that they think. And I'm trying really hard to get involved in that in my mind and think about how I use words. And thinking of that, shaping success is going to change a little bit. I don't know how much, but this year has been kind of an exploration year for me. I haven't done as many interviews, and when people reach out to me and ask me if I want to do an interview, I kind of vet them and kind of talk to them a little bit and kind of figure out if it fits with what I'm trying to do. People call me, people ask me questions about what I do and how I've created the show, and am I a coach? Am I this? Am I that? Blah, blah, blah. Like, we all know, if you've been with me for a while, that I was a teacher, and I've always thought of myself as a teacher no matter what I've been doing. So when we're working through things and we're doing things or whatever, and someone asks me a question, I think the best thing that you can do is teach them, not just give it to them, not just do it for them. And I do this a lot with my own kids, it's kind of ironic because I sit there and I talk to them and I tell them how to do something. Not my son so much, he's a year and a half old, so he's still learning things. But like my daughter, when she's like, I can't do this, you do it. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to show you how so that you can do it. And the only way that you're going to get better at it is to continue to do it. And so I've always had that mentality in my life. When I was working at Les Schwab, I was a sales and service person. I was an assistant manager at one point, but I was always the person who trained people. And when you train people, the more they know, the better off they are. And if you keep your knowledge close to you, a lot of times you think that your knowledge is going to be something that someone else can take. Someone can steal your ideas. Someone can take what you know and make it better. Well, that's what a lot of people spend their life doing. We're always trying to search for this trajectory of what can make us better? What can we do? And you seek out knowledge, right? And there's a bunch of ways to seek out knowledge. You can seek out knowledge through books. We talked about Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits. I listen to books. I always say I read, and it's not really reading, but it's listening. And I had my Audible stats the other day, and it was 4,000 listening hours this year. So it's pretty cool to see that. But listening to podcasts, watching on YouTube, we live in this age where technology helps you do anything that you want. You can go to YouTube and figure out how to do a tune-up on your car if you want. There's no reason why you can't do something, because all the resources are right there in this little handheld computer that you have, that you carry around with you all day, every day, in your phone. So using those resources to get the knowledge that you need is one of those things that people, I can't do this. I don't know how. I don't know. It's an excuse, right? We create these excuses for the things that we do. And so you need to be constantly using your resources if you want to move forward, if you want to go on, if you want to accomplish something. There's a lot of ways to do that. The tough thing is when you're in me getting to go to work today and getting to do this podcast right now is all on me, because I have a meeting at 8:00 in an hour and a half that I have to go to. I have a little bit of work I have to do right now. I have a choice, right? I could just go down and start doing that work and not get this podcast recorded and not reach out and not teach, some of the things that I use to help myself get going. To me, it's a half hour. It's just like riding the bike. Okay. So I thought about, I need to exercise every single day. I had to make time for it. I had to figure out to do it. Everyone's like, oh, there's no time. There's no time. You got 24 hours in a day. What do you do? 8 hours of those is sleeping, 8 hours of those is working. What do you do with the rest of that? Where's that other 8 hours go? There's a lot of time in there, right? And maybe you have 2 jobs. Okay, so now there's 4. So there's still 4 hours there. 8 hours sleeping, 8 hours or 12 hours working. You still have time. What do you do with your time? I sit down and watch TV. That's a choice you make, right? You make the choices. So finding a way to do that and finding how to be whatever you want to be, making that time. So I'm making time for this podcast. I know that I have a certain amount of time to get my work done, and I have scheduled that out so that I can make it work. So finding the time to do it. It's not always easy, but if you make that choice to do it, then it is. I go to bed, 8, 9 o'clock at night. I get up at 4:15. I ride my bike every morning. I sit down and crush social media in the morning after I get done with that for a little bit while I drink a couple cups of coffee, shower up, and do whatever I need to do before work. Luckily enough, it's really hard for me to record right now because I'm in this space that typically there's a whole bunch of people in here. Not a whole bunch of people, but my wife's sleeping in there, my son's sleeping in there, my daughter's sleeping in there. Coming out here and running my mouth for 30 minutes isn't really conducive to the situation at 5 a.m, or I would do it every single day. Luckily, in my new house, I'm able to build a place that I can record, and I can just walk out my bedroom door and go into my studio and record episodes if I want. So that's kind of been the tough part about this whole situation. But anyway, back to the changing of the podcast. I mean, there are things that are going to be happening that I'm not quite sure I want to announce yet, but I'm going to kind of have a co-host. We're going to break down things to help share that knowledge, because I feel like there's a lot of people who think that they're stuck, and I want to give you an opportunity to understand that success, which is what this show is based on, is defined by you, but it's not. You have the opportunity to generate that success if you just do the work. But if you don't, if you have a block, if you're scared, if you think that it's out of reach or you can't do it, you're never going to do it. You're never going to put that foot forward in order to succeed in what you're trying to do. So you have to be willing to make that transition from thinking about it to doing it. And I think that that's the really difficult part that a lot of people have a hard time. So I want to help people, get started in doing that. And that's what I've always done. So whenever I'm training someone or ever I'm teaching someone, I want them to know how I did it. And they can do whatever works for them. But then that way they know what works for me and what is successful for me. And they may learn something from me. They may teach me something. But I want them to have all the knowledge that I have so that they can create something that is the same as what I do. I struggle with this a lot because even though I want that, I feel like I probably would be a little jealous if they were more successful than me using the tools that I gave them. But I also understand that that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to help them be better. So it's a struggle. Like, it's not easy. It's never easy to do a lot of the stuff that I talk about, but you have to put that foot forward. You have to realize that you can only control the things that you can control. And a lot of times you can't control anything. But what you can control is how you react to the situation. So that's the interesting thing about that, is it's a struggle. It obviously is a struggle to walk that line, to be pushing forward, to be working towards those goals that you want. It's never easy, but a lot of the successful people didn't be successful overnight. And this timeline thing that I've been talking about a little bit, I don't know if I've talked about it maybe on a couple podcasts previously, but I was talking to the guy that I'm going to probably do some co-hosting with here next couple months. And we were talking about timelines, okay? The situations that happen in your life are very interesting. When we talk about timelines, you think about your life from birth, okay? So think about, I am 42 years old. There are two people who have known me since I was, they've known the most about me because they've known me since I was 42, or since I was 0, right? My parents, right? Our timeline started when I was born between my parents, okay? My parents are 21, 22 years old when I'm born. I know nothing about the first 21 years of their life because my timeline has intersected with theirs when they're, 20 years into theirs. So you think about that. When your life intersects with someone, so anyone that I know at 42 that I meet today, our timeline is intersected at that time. And really that's when when the reality began, that I know them, they know me, and I have this impression that I have to make with them starting at 42. Now, they don't know all the things that happened in my past. There could be, there could be all kinds of things that I did that they don't know about, but they see what I'm doing now. So you see me, you look at me and you think, oh, well, What do I know about him? I'm listening to his podcast right now. He's got 42,000 downloads on his podcast. He's got 200 episodes. He's got 1,700 subscribers on YouTube. Like, we know those things, and you may think, well, that's not very much, or you may think that's a lot, but what you know is what you see. So you're making a judgment on me based on all the knowledge of me that you have on year 42. Okay? What you don't see is all the stuff that I did the 42 years prior. You don't see that I failed college. I dropped out and worked at a tire center for 11 years. I was an assistant manager and got stepped down for calling a guy fat. You don't see that I went back and worked as a sales and service person from an assistant manager for 3 years and got back on the list and then injured myself and decided to go back to college, which I failed out. And then got my bachelor's degree, went from a 1.67 GPA when I was 18 years old to a 3.7 GPA when I was, 35. Okay? You don't see that I got a master's degree while I taught for 4 years. You don't see that I started out in a 100% commission job selling window coverings, which I do now, and took it from $1 million to $2 million a year. You don't see that. That's not what I make. But you don't see that stuff. You don't see all the struggles that took off. You see what you see now. So that's what you have to think about when you're discussing people's situations with them. You can look at someone who's driving around a freaking Lamborghini and go, man, that guy's just lucky. But you don't see all the backstory. And so the next time that you think about passing judgment on someone, think about their timeline and think about how when your time intersected with them and how they've been where they've been. There are so many struggles that you miss and that you pass judgment on, and you look at someone else and you're envious, or you're like, why is this guy this way, or what did they do, and I'm better than that, and blah 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 blah. But the fact of the matter is that person did the work and you haven't, and you can sit there and think, well, why did they get that, or you can sit there and what can I do to get that. And that's what moving forward is all about. No matter what you do, no matter where your timeline passes with that person, doesn't mean that you are better than them or they're better than you. They just put in the work and you didn't see the work before then. So think about that when you go out there to go do those things. And remember that you see the success of that person. You don't see the failure. You never saw the failure. You just saw how they're doing now. And a lot of times people will see the failure later on. Like, just because they're successful right now doesn't mean that they're not going to fail later on. And that doesn't mean that they can't be successful again, because the difference between people who are successful and people who are not is that you decide to continue pushing forward when other people don't. When you fail, you find another way to be a success. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. That's the Timelines episode. Please go back and listen to some other episodes. I didn't put out a new episode this week or 2 weeks ago, but this is where we are at right now. So you'll be listening to this episode and you'll be talking about that. We'll have another episode coming out with another Enlifted coach. Previous Enlifted coaches, Gege Wiles was on last episode, and we talk about his creating this beer. And this is a person whose timeline and mine crossed 1.5 years ago, and we did some really cool stuff. So go check that out. Get some Warriors Collection coffee. Use hashtag SWC for 15% off. Nikki Pavlovich, thank you for being a Patreon supporter. If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/Wes Tankersley or Shaping Success. Whatever. The links are where you know where the links are. So go hook it up. Have a great day. Until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success.